Good morning, Southern California, AM 1220 KHTS. This is your host, Fred Arnold, on the Santa Cruz Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight. I'm here with John Musella. John Musella is with the Musella Group, a public relations firm. I should say it is a corporate communications and public agency affairs agency. How's that?
That's pretty good. Good job, Fred.
Very
Pleasure
good.
to be here this morning.
You communicate. You communicate with the outside world for businesses. Tell us a little bit about your firm.
Correct. I mean, my firm, I set up about 2 years ago after spending 4 years working at Newhall Land. Been in the business for about 15 years now. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to do for clients is to clearly communicate their message and what it is they're trying to accomplish, and work with local community and local constituencies to get things done to meet their business objectives.
So what kind of I always call it media, what kind of in what ways do you find communication most effective? Has it changed with each job? Give me some examples.
Honestly, it changes with every job, but you've really got to focus in and decide what your client needs. Sometimes it's social media. Sometimes it's one-on-one personal relationships and personal connections with people. Sometimes it's getting the word out via traditional media sources, radio, TV, print media. It just depends on what the goal is and who the target audience is at the end of the day, and what media channels they're looking for their information on and how they receive that information. So it's really, you got to custom tailor it to every single person, because sometimes social media works for someone, sometimes it doesn't.
You had mentioned previously, and I was reading, that you worked on the Playa Vista, right?
Yeah, the Playa Vista project.
Over on the west side of LA.
Correct.
And some of the particular challenges you had there really gave you the experience to be able to tackle challenges here.
Correct. Yeah, no, I graduated from Washington State University with a degree in communications, and my first job was working on the Playa Vista project, which is a very significant mixed-use development down in West LA, and it really is where I cut my teeth in working in public affairs and real estate land development to begin with, and found that I really had a passion there. Funny, I always had an interest in architecture, but ended up going the communications route. It was a nice marriage between the two, and I've really enjoyed doing it, because I think development is so challenging in the state of California in particular, and especially here in Los Angeles, that you've really got to clearly communicate your message, what you're looking for as a developer. And also, it's not just communicating to the public, it's also being part of a conversation with local constituencies and making sure your client, the developer, is hearing what the locals have to say about what they want to see there as well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical for those of you watching this and finding out more about John and his firm. This is so important because, and I mentioned this in Sacramento this past week to several legislators, and that is CEQA and the challenge with development, because they created a whole bunch of rules to protect the environment back in 79, 80, 81, and in that time frame, at the same time the national EPA was being developed and their new set of rules. And you have to have clear communication to find out who's going to oppose a project, to find out how you can communicate with them, to how do you can communicate with the public, how do you communicate with all these different groups. It's really much more dynamic than you think, isn't it?
Oh, it's very dynamic. And one of the things you always do going into a development project is to identify where you might have some situations where you're going to have some, significant conversations with folks that may not be happy about what the project is and what it's about. And I always believe in going out to those folks early on and having a conversation to see who's reasonable and who you can actually talk to and have a dialogue with. You're not going to be able to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time, but really you engage in those conversations and show the developers transparent as part of the CEQA process, and people really respect that and appreciate that at the end of the day. I mean, there's so much developers have to do as far as on the environmental side that they're required to do and that they want to do. And I always find it important to work for people you enjoy working with and that have integrity and want to do the right thing.
And are transparent.
Correct, absolutely.
Transparency is great in communication, always critical. John, those that want to reach out to you, this was just a small sample of who you were.
Absolutely. Best way to get a hold of me is my cell phone, which I'll put it out there, 310-717-6622.
One more.
310-717-6622.
And those online, the Musella, will you spell that out, group.com?
Yeah, the Musella Group, which is Musella group.com.
Perfect.
Great, thanks
Thanks
so much,
for coming in. I hope you, John Musella from the Musella Group, I hope you enjoyed this segment of the Santa Cruz Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight on AM 1220 KHTS.